I had this male friend, all right, and I rejected him. We were dating. One time he got really angry at me in like a joking way, all right? And he really let like his masculine power that I always sensed under the surface out. And I got really turned on. But of course I did not tell him that.
Mode 1.
Okay? But if he knew that and he knew that, he could bring that out more, he could use that against me. So, what is this masculine power? It's difficult to put words to it, but it's an energy that all men have that's extremely powerful. It's raw. It's rough. It's the power of. There's this book, Mode 1, okay, and it's kind of talking about this. I recommend you all read it. And basically, it said if every man took a truth serum and he said exactly what he thought, and he did exactly what he wanted, and he kind of didn't give a fuck anymore. And he said brutal, I guess, raw honesty about girls. Like, instead of just being like, you're beautiful, if what he was really thinking was like, oh my god, I would love to just like throw you down on this couch and fuck you right now or whatever, and it's like kind of raunchy and dirty, but that was what he was honestly feeling, that is attractive. This power that men have, that's just like, maybe like if you're a guy watching this, you can understand it from the reverse perspective. Like, are there certain things that women do and you're just like, oh my god, like I am at your mercy? It's the same for girls with guys.
If you got a good memory and you've been a long time follower and supporter of my YouTube channel, you should recall a video I did in 2017 where I was talking about my last 9-to-5 job. My last 9-to-5 job was I was the program coordinator for a mentoring program. It's called the Brother to Brother College Success Program. Another alternative title for it was the Student African American Brotherhood. And it was mainly for young black men and young Hispanic men that came from like lower socioeconomic homes, single mother homes, to give them all the tools they need to help them earn their college degree. For a lot of guys, they would become the first college graduate in their entire family. And one of the things I talked about was I had this summer workshop one time with my mentees. I remember a lot of people were present. My brother, older brother Stephen, was present. And I told these guys, because see, if you don't know my educational history, I went to college, then I left college to pursue an acting career, then I came back and finished and got my degree in 1992. I went back to school in 1991 and finished up in 1992. And honestly, when I was in school the first time, I was not the greatest student in the world because I was distracted, among other things, by the pursuit of pussy. And I even told my guys that at this particular workshop I'm referring to. I told my mentees that. First time I was in college, man, I was all about hooking up with women and getting a lot of pussy. I didn't really care about my academics. And my grades, in many ways, showed that, reflected that. But when I went back to school in 1991, I was a Dean's List scholar. In just about all my classes, I was getting nothing but A's and B's. And the thing that drove me was not just the desire to get my degree or to get a good job as a result of getting my degree, but I wanted vindication. Wanted vindication. Wanted all the people who told me I would never get my degree, who told me I wasn't focused enough, disciplined enough to get my college degree. I wanted my vindication. All the people who doubted me, underestimated me, laughed at me when I talked about making the dean's list. Wanted my vindication. And that's what I said at this workshop. And that's what I said in this video in 2017. If I had one word I had my mentees repeat over and over and over again, I told them, I said, this is what should drive you to go to your classes every day, study hard, and ultimately earn your degree. It's not just a desire to get, like, say, a 6-figure salary, live in a bigger house, or drive a better car, get a better job. But I said, what you want your degree to represent is your personal championship trophy. It should represent, and I ball my fist like this, vindication. And sure enough, without getting a longer story, all the guys in the room just start going like this. Vindicate. It was beautiful, actually, if I say so myself. They just start chanting it. Vindication. 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 I love to be vindicated. I love to be vindicated. Nothing gives me a more pleasurable mental orgasm than vindication. See, what I realized, and I probably knew this before, but what I realized in recent weeks, recent months, is that I can say a lot of things, and a certain percentage of my listening followers will still have doubts. And even more so, my haters and critics will still have their criticisms. But I got a Caucasian woman who uploaded a video almost 2 years ago. And it's funny, it even taught me, you hear a lot of people when it comes to videos, like YouTube videos, they talk about the concept of a viral video, a video that goes viral. And I tended to be a guy, and I think a lot of people have, that assume that a video is only going to go viral within the first few hours after it's uploaded, or within the first few days after it's uploaded, or within the first few weeks it's uploaded. This Caucasian woman I'm referring to, her name is Victoria. Her YouTube channel is called My Non-Leather Life. It was on my community page. I remember when she first posted that video, because she mentioned my book at around the 8-minute mark. It's about a 10.5-minute video. The video is about 10.5 minutes, and she mentions my book at about the 8-minute mark. And the first time I remember, I went to thank her in her comment section for mentioning my book. At that time, I want to say it had like somewhere between, I'd say roughly 35 to 40,000 views, which is a lot by itself. That's more than most of my videos by itself. Most of my videos don't get over 40,000 views. I think I only have like 3 or 4 videos I've ever done on this channel that have more than 40,000 views. My highest view on a particular video is a video that's not on YouTube anymore. It's a Patreon exclusive video. It's about women's true nature, women's true sexually duplicitous nature, and women's true manipulative and materialistic nature. I did in March of 2019. That video has over 70,000 views and almost 1,000 comments and reply comments in the comment section. That's my most successful video to date. And again, it's not on YouTube anymore. I took it off. It's only available if you're a Patreon subscriber. But anyway, at the time I commented on this woman's video, she had about 35 to 40,000 views on that video. That was in 2019. Guess how many views that video has now? Talk about a delayed viral activity. Delayed viral activity. That video has over 800,000 views. I'd say by the end of if it keeps going at this pace, by the end of the year, it'll have 1 million views. It'll have 1 million views. That's right. That video will have, I would estimate and predict that between now and December 31st, I'd say probably before, because here's the amazing thing with her video. In just the last 2 to 3 weeks, it's increased by over 150,000. Because she wrote me, I've had people write me over the last year, different supporters and followers of mine will write me and say, hey man, Alan, do you know that there's this woman that did a video where she mentions your book? And I would always say, yeah, I know about it. And then a week or two later, somebody else would write me. They say, hey, Alan, man, there's this woman that does this video, man. And he got a lot of views, man. She mentions your book. And I would say, yeah, I know about it. And then in the last 2 to 3 months, I've had a whole bunch of guys write me. Like if you go on my Facebook timeline right now, you'll see where 2 guys posted to my Facebook timeline. They say, hey, Alan, you know there's this woman, man, that got a whole bunch of views. Did this video that got a whole bunch of views and she mentions your book. And of course I said, yeah, I know. But what I was saying is, just in the last, I'd say no more than 3 weeks, she wrote me on Facebook because we had talked a couple years ago. I think that was the last time, before recently, that was the last time we talked through Facebook, was about 2 years ago. It was either right before or right after her video first came out. Again, her video, she uploaded that video in June of 2019. And that was around the time, last time I talked to her on Facebook. I think it was even before that. And she wrote me recently, and she said, Alan, do you know that video I did where I mentioned your book now has 650,000 views? That was just about 2.5 to 3 weeks ago. She mentioned that it had 650,000. Now that video has 810,000 views. Why is that? Some people might say, oh, what's so significant about it? I've never had a video on YouTube where where one or more of my books was mentioned that had that many views. Ever. Yeah. Matter of fact, there's not too many videos that I can think of off the top of my head where my book was mentioned that had even over 100,000 videos. The only, just off the top of my head, I remember Sasha Day Game, who I obviously we're not friends anymore. We used to be collaborators and friends, but we no longer are. Although he wrote me an email recently. I haven't responded back yet, but he wrote me an email recently. That's the first time I heard from him, probably like about 5 or 6 years. And he's the only person off the top of my head that had a video. He had at least 2 videos where my books were mentioned that had over 100,000 views. I think one had somewhere between 150 to 200,000 views. Another one had somewhere between 100 and 125,000 views. But those were both years ago. But other than Sasha Day Game, I can't think anybody else who had a video where my books were mentioned that had over 100,000 views. And definitely, I can't think anybody who mentioned my books that had a video where it had over 500,000 views. Yeah, this woman's video. Now, to clarify though, the video is not a direct promotion of my book. It's not like the whole video is about my Mo 1 book. She honestly just happens to briefly mention it towards the end of the video. I'd say at least 3/4 of her video is about just her talking about male sexual attraction and female sexual attraction in general. That's the first 3/4 of her video. She's talking about the nature of men being sexually attracted to women and women being sexually attracted to men. And then in the latter fourth of her video, she mentions my book, Mo 1. And I'm pretty sure that's one of the reasons why my 2006 ebook went up to as high as number 3 in recent weeks. Was in part because she includes the link to my book in her description section. But yeah, it's a form that her video, even though again it doesn't go in detail in my book, is a form of vindication. How so? Because I'm not going to get into every detail about what she talks about, but I will give kind of what I would call my own man speak synopsis of what she was saying in the video. And it's stuff I've said hundreds, if not thousands of times. But a lot of guys probably, when it came out my mouth, they let it go in one ear and out the other. But obviously, when it came out her mouth, guys were like, I needed to know that. Okay. So my first recommendation is you can go over and watch the video yourself and listen to what she has to say. Like my wife listened to her video, and my wife enjoyed it and agreed with it. And so any number one, any woman listening to her video is definitely going to know she's telling the truth. Any woman who listened to the video is going to know she's telling the 100% truth. And any man who's had experiences similar to mine will know she's telling the truth about everything she says. What did she say again? I'm not going to rehash her whole video, but if I had to kind of sum it up, what she's basically saying in the video is that there's a few things she covers. A lot of stuff I'm going to say are not going to be her exact words in the video, but I'm putting it into my own Alan Roger Currie man speak paraphrased version. Number one, she's basically saying, what have I been talking about recently in a lot of my recent videos? Among other things, one of the things I'm emphasizing is the first step to being more one is you got to overcome your fear of rejection. That's the biggest thing you got to do. I would literally say that's step number one if you want to adopt the Mo One lifestyle. You got to overcome your fear of rejection. And in her own roundabout way, that's basically what she basically said in a different way, that women can sense when a man is afraid of being rejected by them. And when a man is afraid of being criticized and insulted by them. I've always said that. I've been saying that, number one, at minimum, ever since I've been on YouTube, and really my entire career, I've been saying that. Women can sense that shit, man. That's why Mode 2 and Mode 3 will never be as effective as Mode 1, ever. I guarantee you that. That's why Mode 2 and Mode 3 will never be as effective as Mode 1. And of course, all these other people, particularly, what did I address in my very last video about indirect game dating culture? See, a lot of indirect guys and just other guys in the manosphere and in society in general have always tried to argue that, basically, in a nutshell, that indirect game is more effective than direct verbal game because it's more subtle, it's more palatable, it's less risk of turning a woman off. And this woman who got the 800,000 plus views is basically saying just the opposite. She's basically saying in her own way that a conventional indirect approach, yeah, you can possibly get a woman in bed using a conventional indirect approach, but it's never going to get a woman's pussy as dripping wet as when you just verbally bold and sexually explicit, like I am. Who was the first motherfucker in the manosphere talking about that? I triple dare you to say anybody other than me. I triple dare you to say anybody other than me. Technically, I've been saying that since the 80s, which is when I first started being Mode 1 and more specifically Mode 1 hardcore. And starting with the age of the internet, I've been saying that since 1999, if not before. No later than 1999, which is when my first ebook version of Mode 1 came out. And ever since then, ever since 1999, I've heard literally hundreds of thousands of guys say, oh, well, you can't be Mode 1. And more specifically, my version of Mode 1 I call Mode 1 hardcore. Guys would always say, oh, Mode 1 hardcore, you're going to turn a bunch of women off. And this woman is basically saying, again, I'm paraphrasing all her words. She's not saying any of this exactly and specifically. But if you know how to read subtext and understand, comprehend what she's essentially saying, here's what she's essentially saying in my words and how I would put it in my words. She's essentially saying that most women are never going to publicly admit that a Mode 1 approach, and more specifically a Mode 1 hardcore approach, is going to turn them on and get leave their pussy wet. But she's saying that I'm bold enough as a woman to admit on this video that when a guy that I'm attracted to is Mode 1 with me, even Mode 1 hardcore with me, he's going to leave my pussy dripping wet. That's essentially what she's, again, those aren't her exact words, but that's essentially what she's saying. Yeah, here's the one segment I'll tell you that substantiates that. At one point in the video, I can't remember the minute mark, but she says something to the effect of, yeah, conventional compliments are nice. It's nice if a guy comes up to you and says, you know, I think you're beautiful. I think you're attractive. Hey, that's a nice dress you got on. But she said it's a totally different animal if a guy looks you dead in your eyes and said, I want to throw you down to the ground and fuck the shit out of you. I want to throw you on the couch and just rip your panties off and fuck the dog shit out of you. She said there's a big difference. She's basically saying that conventional type compliment, yeah, that'll leave her feeling warm and fuzzy and flattered. But she said if a guy was to talk to her real bluntly in a masculine, bold manner, that's going to leave her pussy dripping wet. Who was the first one in the manosphere to say that? I triple dare you to say anybody other than me. I triple dare you to say anybody other than me. I was the very first person in the manosphere. And I ain't talking about, don't talk to me about no black manosphere, because I could do a whole video about the black manosphere, what I witnessed in recent days. Y'all motherfuckers have disappointed me so regard, I probably ain't gonna never go on none of y'all motherfuckers live streams ever again. But that's another story for another video. But I'm talking about the worldwide manosphere. I was the first prominent black man in the white manosphere. Drops mic. I was the first one who came on the scene saying that you could be Mode 1 hardcore with women and leave their pussy dripping wet. When everybody else was saying, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. I've been saying that shit since the mid-'80s, when I was still in college. And my own frat brothers challenged me and said that wouldn't work until I proved it to them in their face. But it took this Caucasian woman named Victoria to say it in her own way, and she gonna have 1 million views on that video before the end of the year. Yeah, like, you know me, I keep up with my book sales. Like I already mentioned my ebook. Like in recent weeks, my ebook version of my 2006 Mode 1 went up to as high as number 3. And then my audiobook version of Mode 1 has gone up too. Now, both books have generally always been in the top 100. So for either my ebook version or my audiobook version of Mode 1 to be in the top 100 is actually no big deal. That is, almost every month they're in the top 100. But when it comes to being in the top 5 or top 10 and so on, nah, man have flanked. For example, my ebook version, it being number 3, that's the highest ranking I've had in probably like at least a year and a half. Yeah, that's the highest ranking I've had in a year and a half. It's always been in the top 100. But as far as going up to as high as number 3, that's the highest ranking I've had in like a year and a half. Same with my audiobook. My audiobook is always in the top 100 in its category, which is personal development / communication and social skills. It's always in the top 100. But recently it was number 13 or number 14. Yeah, I think it was number 13. That's the highest ranking for my audiobook version of Mode 1 since I think December of 2019. At the latest, January 2020. Like a little over a year. That's the highest ranking for my Mode 1 audiobook. Vindication, baby. Vindication. She's shutting all the critics up, man. She basically, again, if you watch her video, man, where I feel vindicated is that she's basically shattering a lot of the misguided beliefs and invalid criticisms I've received. Again, the most notable one is one of the known criticisms I've always received about Mode 1, and more specifically, again, my version of Mode 1 called Mode 1 Hardcore, is guys have said, oh, you can't be that bold with women. You can't be that sexually explicit with women. You'll end up in jail. You'll end up in jail. or if not in jail, at bare minimum, the vast majority of women will end up being turned off. Yeah, that's what women want you to think. And that's what she's saying. That's what women want you to think. That's what women want you to think, that it's going to turn them off. Why do you think you got wholesome pretenders and erotic hypocrites? Remember my 5 archetypes of women, which is, again, reciprocators, rejectors, wholesome pretenders, erotic hypocrites, and manipulative time wasters. Okay? Everybody knows that by now. And to reference a video I did last year when I was having a spirited debate about looks with the young brother C Boogie, I did a video called Looks Alone Only Help You with Women Who Are Reciprocators. Looks alone only help you with women who are reciprocators. They don't help you with wholesome pretenders and erotic hypocrites. Looks alone will never help you. You got to have some degree of verbal game, man. You got to have a mouthpiece. If you want to get wholesome pretenders in bed and erotic hypocrites in bed, you got to have a mouthpiece. You got to have a mouthpiece. And again, to paraphrase what Victoria said in her video, and these are not her exact words, but I'm putting it in my words and my man speak. That's what she's essentially saying in her video. She's basically saying, in so many words, this is what essentially what Victoria's saying in her video as it relates to my 5 archetypes, and particularly 3 of my archetypes: reciprocators, wholesome pretenders, and erotic hypocrites. She's basically saying, if you're not more one, the only way you're going to get women in bed for casual sex is by one of these 3 ways. Is either by being amazingly good looking, which helps you with reciprocators, by spending money on them, tricking or whining and dining, which relates to erotic hypocrites. I've always told men, only way you're going to get an erotic hypocrite in bed without being more one is if you resort to tricking or whining and dining. That's the only way you're going to get an erotic hypocrite in bed without being more one. Is if you resort to tricking or whining and dining. And wholesome pretenders, the only way you're going to get them in bed without being more one is if you resort to lying and manipulation. Resort to pretending like you want a long-term, emotionally profound, exclusively monogamous romantic relationship with them. That's the only way you're going to get a woman in bed without being more one, a wholesome pretender. The only way you're going to get a woman in bed for casual sex without being amazingly good looking, without having to resort to tricking or whining and dining, and without having to spend a lot of time with a woman non-sexually, and more so without having to pretend like you want to be that woman's next long-term boyfriend or future husband, is by being fucking more one. See, here's what you haters and critics don't realize. You want to know, I've said this before, here's one of the most insulting things that's at least 2 or 3 people have done with me, that if they were in my face, there's a 90% chance I would have punched them in their jaw. Straight up. You arguing with an author about his own book, what his own book is about. You arguing with an author about what his own book is about. You know, I've had guys try to tell me that, oh, Alan, you know Mode 1 is all about getting laid. Why are you trying to act like Mode 1 is not about getting laid? When that's what all Mode 1 is. Mode 1 is all about getting laid. No, it's not. And again, referencing Victoria's video, she even in her own way says that. See, what she basically said, I don't remember her exact words, but this is the essence of what she said. She gives away one of the key secrets to getting laid, and I've always said this. One of the keys to getting laid with women, particularly for casual sex, is not to quote-unquote try to get laid, which is what 95 to 99% of all other dating coaches and PUAs, their advice centers around is different ways of trying to get laid. No, that ain't what gets you, that ain't what gets women aroused. You know what gets women aroused? Is when they can tell you don't give a fuck about not getting laid. Let me repeat that. What turns on women the most is when they can tell that you have absolutely no fear of being rejected by them. No fear of receiving a negative reaction from them. No fear of not getting laid. That's what Mode 1 is about. And my more intelligent, educated, and perceptive readers of my books or listeners of my audiobooks picked up on that immediately. I talked about this guy who wrote a long review of my book when it first came out in 2006. He was from Australia. And he wrote a review basically saying that. That's what Mode 1 is about. Mode 1 ain't about trying to get laid. I give you a perfect one story that sums up what I'm talking about. Is if you own my book, ooh, say it again, Verbal Seduction Story Number 1. Verbal Seduction Story Number 1. I talked about that verbal seduction story when I spoke at the 21 convention in 2017. I've talked about it here on my YouTube channel. That's of all my 6 verbal seduction stories, that's the one I've always put the most emphasis on. It's the first one, Verbal Seduction Story Number 1. And without getting into all the details of that story, I was on a triple date. And what happened for about the first hour and 15 minutes, I tried to use Mode 2 Indirect game as a means of trying to get laid. And what happened? Not only was the woman rebuffing my sexual advances, but she was talking to me like I was a beta male bitch boy. And then we ended up going outside the apartment building. And then she said something that made me angry. Then I briefly transitioned from Mode 2 to Mode 4. And I said, bitch, shut the fuck up. And at that time, I had never told no woman that, at least not in the first meeting. I never told no woman that. I looked at that in the eyes. I said, bitch, shut the fuck up. And then this is what I went on to tell her, and this is what got her aroused. And for the rest of the night, she ended up being my personal sex slave. And I'm not saying that as an exaggeration. She literally became my personal sex slave for the rest of the night. You know what I did that changed everything around? Is instead of emphasizing trying to get laid, I let her know that I didn't give a fuck if I didn't get laid. But what I told her, and this relates to my latest book, No Free Attention, what I basically told her was this. I said, listen, the only reason I'm sharing your company tonight because I want to see my dick in your mouth or in your pussy. That's the only reason I'm talking to you. Now, if you're not going to give me the pussy, that's your choice. I ain't going to, rape you, date rape you. If you don't want to give me no pussy, that's your choice. But if you, is where my concept of no free attention comes in. I said, but if you ain't going to give me no pussy, I ain't going to give you no free attention. I ain't going to give you no free conversation. I ain't going to give you no free social companionship. You ain't going to get none of that shit from me if you ain't going to give me no pussy. No more conversation. Our conversation ends right now if you tell me I ain't going to get no pussy. What message did I send to either at maximum her conscious mind and minimum her subconscious mind? I don't give a fuck if you reject me, bitch. I don't give a fuck if you reject me. I don't care. I got other women I can fuck. You ain't the only woman on earth with a vagina. I ain't scared of not fucking you. And that is why I believe Victoria's video is resonating with so many men and enlightening so many men. Because again, in her own woman speak way, that's what she's essentially telling men. She's like, if you, in a nutshell, she's basically saying to men, if you really want to get a woman aroused, you got to show her, man, that you have absolutely no fear of being rejected by them, ignored by them, or criticized or insulted by them. If you really want to leave a woman aroused, you got to prove to them that you have absolutely no fear of being rejected by them, ignored by them, or criticized or insulted by them. As long as a woman can sense that to one degree or another, you're afraid of being rejected by them, that you're afraid of being ignored by them, or that you're afraid of being criticized and or insulted by them, they're going to know you weak. They're going to know you ain't going to never get no alpha male respect from them. You ain't going to never get no alpha male respect from them. Because they're going to know you a weak beta male. Like, there's a brother who's in the Black Manosphere. I just said I'm almost through with the Black Manosphere, but I respect this brother. He commented in my comment section recently, goes by the name King Sigma. And he said, Alan, he liked my very last video when I was talking about indirect game. As you know, in that video, I made the argument that I don't understand why guys would pay money, particularly big money, for an indirect dating coach. Now, again, if all you do is watch the videos YouTube videos of an indirect dating coach, and you might send them a $5 PayPal here and there, a $5 Cash App here or there. I'm not talking about you. You ain't spending no big money. I'm talking about a guy who will pay an indirect dating coach, like, say, a minimum of $250 for like a consultation or a face-to-face coaching session. I don't get it. And I'm going to briefly reiterate what I said in my last video. Indirect game, to me, is so simplistic that it doesn't really need coaching. Here's the essence of all forms of indirect game. Meet a woman, pretend like, give her the misleading impression that you're interested in a long-term sexual companionship, even though you're really interested in short-term sexual companionship. Give her the misleading impression that you're interested in a monogamous sexual relationship when you know damn well deep down you're only interested in non-monogamous sex. And finally, and most importantly, give her the misleading impression that you desire, value, and appreciate her non-sexual attention, conversation, and companionship more, just as much, if not more, than you do her sexual attention, conversation, and companionship. That's the three keys to execute any form of indirect game. In even more simplistic terms, just be full of shit. That's a really sum up way to put it. Just learn how to be full of shit. To me, everybody should know how to be full of shit if they need to be. I do. I don't need no coach for that. I know how to be full of shit with people when I need to be. Shit, that shit came natural to me, starting with high school. It's just like I highlighted in a video a couple years ago how my brother used to tease me. Like, I'll tell you one thing I've done here on YouTube with some people. My brother teased me and criticized me about this way back when. He said, bro, you know one habit you have that's interesting? I said, what? He said, you know how to play stupid. You know how to act sometimes like you're less knowledgeable than you really are, less intelligent than you really are. If you're trying to identify if a person's a shady, manipulative type person. And I was like, oh, so you picked up on that? He said, of course I did. I'm your older brother. But yeah, I do. I've done that with guys on YouTube in the manosphere. Sometimes I'll play like I'm almost like a male airhead sometimes. But that's my way of studying you. If I had to give out my secrecy, and that's what a lot of women do. A lot of women, there's some women who are genuine airheads, and then there's other women. Like, I remember somebody said this about Marilyn Monroe, the famous actress. They said, a lot of people used to say Marilyn Monroe was an airhead, and people close to her said, no, she's not. She knows how to play the airhead role. She's not. She's exceptionally intelligent. She knows how to read people, just like I do. That's what they said about her. They said she knows how to read people. She plays the role of the airhead so she can better read people. That's what I do sometimes. I'll play like I'm stupid, like, oh gosh, silly me. And I'm really just reading your ass. I'm an expert at reading motherfuckers, man. I can predict shit people gonna do sometimes, not only weeks ahead of time, months ahead of time, years. Like, I ain't gonna mention this brother's name. There's a brother, a black man on the YouTube, in the black manosphere. I predicted in 2017 that he was going to transition into becoming both a book author and a dating coach when he himself vehemently denied it. In summer and fall 2017, I told my listeners, I said, I guarantee you, here's my prediction. This guy, at some point in the future, he's going to try to transition into becoming both a dating coach and a book author. And again, this person himself, he denied it at the time. He said, I have no interest in either one of those things. I have no interest. That's how I know how to read motherfuckers, man. I know he wanted to do both. I know he wanted to do both. And now this year he comes out with a book. And even last year, the year before, he announced he was a dating coach. I knew that shit in summer 2017. And you telling me I don't know how to read people? I knew his whole game plan 4 years ago. That's how bad of a motherfucker I am when it comes to reading people. I predicted everything he's done 4 years ago. Drops mic. And that's what helps me seduce women. I know how to read women like a book. Ain't nobody in the manosphere better than me in that regard. Nobody. Yeah, quote me on it. Tell everybody I said it. Ain't nobody better than me in that area. Victoria's video is vindication. 800,000 plus videos. My ebooks are selling like hotcakes. My audiobooks are selling like hotcakes. Ain't about Mo One, ain't about trying to get laid, man. If you want to take away from this video, and for the most part, her video too, both of these videos, my video and her video, if I had in there done a one takeaway, Mo One ain't about trying to get laid, man. I say that in the book. If you read it carefully enough, or if you got the audiobook, if you listen carefully, that ain't what Mo One is about. And again, I've had people try to argue with me about my own book and say, oh, yes, it is. It's about getting, no, it's not. It's about having the balls and backbone to demonstrate to a woman that you don't care if you don't get laid with her. And Victoria, what she was basically meant in her video is that that's what turns women on. That's why women like the proverbial bad boys and the assholes and the jerks. Because most bad boys, they tend to have attitude like, bitch, I want to fuck you, but I don't need to fuck you. I don't need to fuck you. I got other bitches I can fuck. You ain't the only woman with a tight pussy walking around here and nice tits. I say that in my book. If anybody owns my ebook version called Mo One Hardcore, I was the number one takeaway of that book. Towards the end of the book, I say that. I say, if you don't remember anything else from this book, remember this. It's okay to desire a woman's sexual companionship, to want it, but never allow yourself mentally to be in a position where you need a woman's sexual companionship. You got to talk to a woman with an underlying attitude like, bitch, if you choose not to give me some pussy, I don't give a fuck. You ain't that special. I don't give a fuck. And that's why I got into it with that other dating coach and that former pimp last year when they tried to say Mo One was synonymous with being thirsty and being desperate and being impatient for sex. No, it ain't. It's just the opposite. They ain't never seen me be Mo One if they think it's representing being thirsty. I ain't never been thirsty with no woman. If anything, I'm cocky than a motherfucker when I'm Mo One. I have attitude like I know I'm gonna fuck your ass. Oh, that's another thing. And then I'm gonna wrap up because it's getting too long now. But that's another thing she admitted. Go watch her video. She admitted. I've said this multiple times. I said a lot of times when I'm Mo One with women, I'm cocky as fuck. Like the woman I always refer to as Sharon. That's how I got her in bed. I was cocky than a motherfucker with her. Even though I didn't have a pot to piss, as they say, a pot to piss in. I wasn't making hardly no money. This was a woman that normally dealt with guys who were millionaires or at least guys making six figures. I came at her with attitude like, I know you want me to fuck you. I know you do. I know you do. Here's my contact information. I know you're going to call me. I was cocky than what she said it later on after we started fucking. She said, you're the cockiest guy I ever met that didn't really want making no money. She said, I've never met a man who's had as limited financial resources as you that was as cocky as you. But that's what it got her pussy wet. That's what made her intrigued. And again, that's what Victoria was saying. That's what Victoria was saying, man. And again, in her own way and in her own woman speak, that's what Victoria was saying. She was saying that, I don't want to try to quote her words because I'll get it wrong, but essentially she was saying that I can reject a guy, or at least be on the verge of rejecting a guy, but still be very sexually attracted to him if he's very confident and masculine. If he's very confident and masculine. That's what she said. I don't remember her exact specific words, but essentially that's what she said. She said, I can name a number of guys that I either did reject or was on the verge of rejecting, even though deep down I was very sexually attracted to them because they were so confident and so masculine. Remember the three things I always say contribute to your ability to get women in bed. Number one, your looks. Number two, your level of confidence, masculinity, and overall alpha male dominance, which I call your masculine sex appeal. And then number three, your confident, smooth, persuasively charming, and seductive mouthpiece. And see, what Victoria was basically saying, again, what I've said multiple times, as far as number one, looks, she basically was saying that in my term, using my terminology, if a woman's a wholesome pretender or an erotic hypocrite, ain't no woman gonna sleep with a guy just based on looks alone. Only reciprocators are gonna sleep with a guy based on just his looks alone. Of my 5 archetypes, that's the only archetype of women that's gonna sleep with a guy just based on him being good looking alone. Is a woman that's a reciprocator. But she said in so many words that if a woman's a wholesome pretender or an erotic hypocrite, you gotta have number 2 and number 3 going on for you. You gotta have number 2, which is masculine sex appeal, and number 3, a persuasively charming and seductive mouthpiece going for you. If you don't have number 2 and number 3 going on for you, and the woman's a wholesome pretender or an erotic hypocrite, then in worst case scenario, you're not gonna get that woman in bed at all. Or in best case scenario, you're gonna have to resort to a combination of tricking and whining and dining if the woman's an erotic hypocrite, or you're gonna have to resort to spending a lot of time with a woman non-sexually and pretending like you want to be that woman's next long-term boyfriend or future husband if the woman's a wholesome pretender. Vindication. Vindication. I got my vindication. I will continue to get my vindication. And I'll be smiling and dancing while my haters and critics are frowning. And nothing makes me happier.